paranoid to the end, had kept the real access codes separate. Greed makes people blind, Charlie said, his voice low. He turned to look at Sarah. The light from the porthole caught the golden flecks in her eyes. But it also makes them predictable. Sarah reached up, adjusting the collar of his jacket. It was a domestic gesture, one that felt startlingly intimate in the middle of a crime scene. And what about us, Charlie? Are we predictable? Charlie took her hand, pressing it against his chest so she could feel the steady thud of his heart. I hope not. I want us to be the thing that neither of us saw coming. The arrest of Veronica Goodwin was a masterclass in tactical precision, but it was the aftermath, the quiet drive back to the city with Rex in the back that mattered. They didn't speak, but the air between them was thick with a new, settled understanding. The shadows of the case were retreating, replaced by a light that was only beginning to grow. Chapter 7. The Alchemist's Daughter. The Devereux Distillery was a place of history and heartbreak. As Charlie and Sarah stood before the massive copper stills, the scent of botanicals felt suffocating. Labrador tea, Sarah analyzed, holding a sprig of the local plant. In the right dose, it's a unique flavor. In high concentrations, it's a neurotoxin. Melanie didn't just steal her father's secret, she turned it into a weapon. The tragedy of the Devereux family was one of silence. A father who couldn't express pride, and children who turned that neglect into a lethal ambition. I grew up thinking legacy was everything, Sarah said, as they walked through the aging room, surrounded by barrels of gin. But seeing this, it makes me realize that a legacy built on fear is just a slow-acting poison. Charlie stopped her by one of the oak casks. The lighting was dim, the only sound the distant drip of condensation. My legacy was a dog and a badge. I thought that was enough. Until I met you. Sarah looked up at him, her vulnerability laid bare. I've spent my life looking through microscopes, Charlie, trying to find the truth in the smallest things. But the truth I feel when I'm with you, it's too big to fit under a lens. He leaned in, his forehead resting against hers. Then stop looking at the small things. Look at me. The kiss that followed was deep and desperate, a release of months of tension. It tasted of juniper and salt, of the cold Atlantic and the warmth of a fire. In that moment, the distillery wasn't a crime scene. It was a sanctuary. But the betrayal of Melanie Devereux was a harsh reminder of the world they lived in. She had drowned her father, a man who was already dying, just to claim a throne made of glass. She didn't have to do it. Sarah sighed later, leaning against the unit's balcony. He was going to leave it all to her anyway. He just didn't know how to say it. Sometimes, Charlie said, wrapping his arms around her from behind, the most important things are the ones we find the hardest to say. Chapter 8. The Long Walk Home. The Cape Royal Trail was a brutal beauty. The cliffs dropped sharply into the churning grey sea, and the wind whipped through the stunted pines like a living thing. Charlie felt the weight of his sidearm and the steady presence of Rex as they tracked the hit woman, Serena Rickett. She's a pro, Charlie, Sarah whispered into her comms. She was positioned at a vantage point, her binoculars scanning the tree line. She's not just here for the witness. She's hunting you. Let her come, Charlie muttered, his pulse steady. The ambush happened in a flash of movement. A rifle shot cracked the air, and Charlie felt a searing heat in his shoulder. He fell back, the world spinning. Charlie. Sarah's voice over the radio was a jagged edge of panic. Rex lunged into the brush, his snarls echoing the primal fear in Sarah's heart. Jesse moved to cover the witness, but Sarah was already running. She didn't care about the protocol or the danger. She only cared about the man bleeding on the forest floor. She reached him, just as Serena Rickett emerged from the shadows. Her pistol raised. "Get away from him," Sarah said, her voice cold and steady. She wasn't holding a weapon. She was holding a high-intensity forensic light, pointed directly at the hit woman's eyes. The momentary blindness was all Rex needed. The dog struck like a thunderbolt, taking the woman down before she could pull the trigger. Sarah collapsed beside Charlie, her hands frantic as she tore open his shirt. "You're okay. You're okay. You're okay, she chanted, more for herself than him. I told you. I love you, Charlie coughed, a faint smile on his face. Tough way to get a confession, Truong. Shut up, Hudson, she sobbed, pressing a bandage to his wound. You're staying alive, because I'm not finished with you yet. The recovery was slow, but it was spent together. In the quiet of Charlie's trailer, with the sound of the waves providing the soundtrack, they found the life they had both been searching for. You know, Sarah said one evening, handing him a cup of tea as they sat on the porch. I think I like the view from here better than the lab. Charlie looked at her, the woman who had faced a killer for him, the woman who had seen through his walls. The view is perfect, Sarah, because you're in it. Rex barked, a happy sharp sound that echoed across the water. The fog had settled back over the city, but for Charlie and Sarah, the path ahead was finally beautifully clear. The Scent of Shadows, Part 2, The Echoes of Justice, a novel of romantic suspense. Chapter 6, The Fragility of Breath. The sterile smell of Street Clare's Mercy Hospital was a far cry from the salt-tinged air of the Atlantic. Detective Charlie Hudson lay in the narrow bed, the white sheets stark against his tanned skin. His left shoulder was a mass of bandages and dull, throbbing pain, a souvenir from Serena Ricketts' cold precision. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the woods. He heard the snap of a twig, the whistle of a bullet, and the desperate, guttural bark of Rex. Beside him, Sarah Truong sat in a plastic chair that looked agonizingly uncomfortable. She hadn't left his side for 36 hours. Her laptop was open on her knees, the glow reflecting in the dark circles under her eyes, but she wasn't working. She was watching him breathe. You should go home, Sarah, Charlie rasped, his voice sounding like it had been dragged over gravel. Sarah didn't look up immediately. She adjusted her glasses, her fingers trembling slightly. I tried. I made it to the parking lot. Then I realized I couldn't remember where I parked, or how to breathe. Without checking your vitals every 10 minutes, Charlie reached out with his good hand. Sarah took it, her palm warm and grounding. The silence between them wasn't the awkward quiet of colleagues. It was the heavy, charged silence of two people who had almost lost the world. Rex? Charlie asked. In the hallway, Sarah smiled weakly. Donovan is accidentally leaving the door ajar. The nurses are pretend ignoring him because he saved a witness and a detective. He's currently the most popular officer in the building. As if on cue, a wet nose nudged the door open. Rex trotted in, his movements uncharacteristically subdued. He bypassed the chair and rested his chin on the edge of Charlie's bed. His brown eyes filled with an intelligence that felt almost ancient. Hey, partner, Charlie whispered, his fingers tangling in Rex's fur. In that moment, the romance wasn't in grand gestures or whispered confessions. It was in the shared weight of survival. It was in the way Sarah leaned her head against Charlie's good shoulder, and the way the three of them, man, woman, and dog, formed a fortress against the shadows that still lurked outside the hospital walls. Chapter 7. The Ghost in the Song. A week later, Charlie was back at his trailer. The ocean breeze doing more for his recovery than any physical therapy. Jesse had stopped by with his guitar, the same one he'd played on that fateful afternoon before the Cape Royal call. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of bruised plum and gold, Jesse began to strum a melancholic tune. It was the song that had triggered something in Sarah, the one about waiting and the passing of time. Sarah stood by the window, a glass of wine untouched in her hand. You never told me about her, Charlie said softly, referring to the woman in Nova Scotia Jesse had mentioned. Sarah turned, the candlelight flickering in her eyes. Her name was Elena. We were everything to each other, or I thought we were. She was a rising star in the legal world, much like Megan Schaefer, but she couldn't handle the shadows. Charlie. My work. The DNA of death, the late-night calls. She wanted a life that was clean. I couldn't give it to her. Is that why you came here? To get away from the clean life? Sarah walked over and sat on the edge of the coffee table, facing him. I came here because I realized that the only people who truly understand the darkness are the ones who carry the light in